Hello, welcome to the post-match pint on the Villa View. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by Neil Dunworth to discuss West Ham United 1, Aston Villa 1. This show is sponsored by Purity Ale, and if you use the code hashtag VillaView, you'll get 10% off everything Purity have to offer, and I assure you it's all good stuff. Neil, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I've had a couple of hours to decompress after that game, and while it wasn't anything, I like there won't be any almanacs written about that game
I don't even know
today.
what that word means, Neil, so that's a fantastic start to the show. What on earth does that, what was that word you just said?
An almanac, it's like something where you catalog statistics based on events.
Okay.
Usually, yeah. There won't be anything really written on that today. But look, I think a point is, I suppose, when you boil it all down to its nuts and bolts, that there's two analogies that I never thought I'd run the two of them in together. But when you
I know
boil
what
it
that
all
means
down,
at least.
a 1-1 draw away from home for this Aston Villa team is pretty decent, albeit it's a missed. I still have this nagging feeling in the back of my head. It's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think it was a chance for 3 points. I think most of the time, any point away from home is a decent point in most circumstances in an away game. And I think this probably falls under that category today. There's a few frustrations in there. Obviously, the fact Villa were 1-0 up and got pegged back pretty quickly. We'll come on to the penalty that I don't think what was a penalty, but these things happen in the Premier League most weeks. It seems it will happen to someone. But on the face of it, I think it's a decent point. West Ham, tough place to go. Really, I think that they're fighting for their lives down at the bottom now. That they need wins. I thought at times they were the better side, but Villa managed to curtail them quite well. I actually think the first goal came when West Ham were on top in the game, and Villa kind of scored
Mm.
a little bit against the run of play. I would say, but then I would say also their goal came a little bit against the run of play because suddenly we started popping it around when we were 1-0 up. But I don't think it's a bad point at all. I think Unai Emery's interview afterwards on Villa TV, I think he kind of said that the same thing. But let's get into what happened in the game. And Villa kind of did their job, really, didn't they, Neil? Because we said in the match preview that Villa can get themselves ahead in the first 15, 20 minutes and get the crowd tetchy, get the crowd on the team's backs. That's the perfect thing for to happen, the perfect way for the game to go. And that is what Villa did. They rode a little bit of a storm. I thought Villa defended well all day, by the way, but they rode a little bit of a storm and they got themselves ahead. Ollie Watkins again, that's 6 in 7. But for him now, a lovely header, downward header, perfect header, great centre forwards goal. I guess that's one of the annoying things from today is that Villa got themselves into the position, rode a storm, went 1-0 up. That lead just didn't last long enough.
Yeah, I agree. I actually, it's interesting because I hadn't thought about that. That both goals did come kind of against the run of play. The Villa goal was a case of we soaked a small bit of pressure. Now, West Ham weren't peppering our goal by any means in the first half, but all of a sudden Moreno breaks loose down the left hand side, whips in a beaut of a cross, and we're 1-0 up. And you're right. I never actually factored that in. And also, the West Ham penalty was against the run of play,
Yeah.
albeit we were under pressure at corners. So I agree with you. I
Corners were a problem today, I thought,
Yeah,
in general, but
big
it's West Ham.
yeah. Yeah, they were a big problem. When you've got three centre halves and Rice and Suchek, that's five big targets that they have in there. And if they had Mikel Antonio in there as well, it would have been another one. So they are adept at corners, and it was very much a wrestling match for a lot of the corners. Like a lot of people are saying there could have been 4 or 5, 6 penalties given
Yeah.
for corners. I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree with that. But you're right in the fact that Villa did defend well all day. There was no real time, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I can't really remember a time when Villa were very badly skinned, save for maybe when Max Cornet was living like 3 or 4 yards offside each time, trying to
Yeah.
play on the shoulder of Tyrone Mings at the end. But up until that, I don't particularly remember a time when they got in behind us or when we were left. Of course, West Ham had chances, but I don't think any of them were because of massive defensive blunders, if that makes sense.
No, I think probably I would say I felt relatively comfortable through the whole game with how we were defending. I think West Ham did put us under pressure at times, especially from
Mm.
set plays. When they had corners, and it felt like they had a lot in the game. I've not seen the stats back, but it did feel like they had a lot of corners. They were the only times I was really worried through the game. There was nothing else in there that really concerned me. But although I thought Villa were okay today, I guess West Ham fans would probably say a similar thing, although not from corners, but they'd say Villa didn't do much today that scared me. That's why I come away thinking 1-1 was in a lot of ways a fair result. I guess the thing with Villa from our point of view is the penalties just. I don't think it's a penalty. I don't think you can criticise Leon Bailey for a lot of things. And he puts his hands on him, but it happens all over the pitch. 90 minutes, 90 plus minutes. Your players will put their hands on someone. It doesn't mean that you fall down in the way Paquetá did, and I just don't think it's a penalty. But I also think as soon as the ref gives it, and the ref's been conned. Look, that's what's happened there. The ref's been conned into giving a penalty. That's where you'd like VAR to come in and say, I think you might have made a mistake here. You might want to go and look at the screen. I don't think the fall justifies the contact. But unfortunately, because there's this clear and obvious guys, that's not what happens. And it's very unlikely at that point, as soon as that penalty is given by the ref, that he's going to overturn it. Now, if the ref hadn't given it and it goes to VAR and VAR look at it, I'm 99.9% certain they don't give that as a penalty. But this is just where we are with VAR, and it's in these circumstances, it adds absolutely nothing to the game, because it's just that kind of thing is just stupid. That if they'd have looked at it and it hadn't have been given, they wouldn't have given it. But because it has been given, they've looked at it and they've not overturned it. And that's just stupid is the only word I can use to describe that now.
It looked like the two incidents you can talk about Declan Rice's. I can understand. I can understand why the penalty was given. The Bailey penalty was given. Hands on the shoulder will look bad in slow motion.
Well, Peter Miles is saying in the comments that it wasn't his hands; their legs get tangled and they both fall over. But from seeing it back, I didn't see a leg tangle.
I could be wrong. I could be absolutely wrong.
So could I. But I've watched it a few times now, and I think he goes down. It's given for the hands, in my opinion. I could be wrong.
I think their legs get tangled because he goes down when Paqueta goes to ground, and then their legs get tangled. And then, yes, Bailey does end up on the ground because he kind of almost falls over him as Paqueta
he throws himself down once Paquetá does it, because I think that's what players do. He's trying to protect himself.
Maybe so. I once again, without having it here, it would be brilliant if we could look at it in real time, because I can't fully remember.
We struggle to get on air on the right channel. We're not getting Adam to play out clips as well. There's just absolutely no. If we get technology is not ready for that.
Exactly, yeah, and you're probably going to get copyright strikes anyway, left, right, and centre from the Premier League. So there won't be a channel if that happens. Take it from experience. I've gotten an email about it previously. But look, I suppose. Either way, I think it was. I can understand why it was given. My biggest gripe with that penalty is that the ball was going away from goal, the player was going away from goal, and all you really yes, there was an opportunity to counter attack. There was an opportunity. I can see it, but first principles would be, okay, you go and you steady things up, you get into it, you realize where you are in the field, and you don't give the referee any decision to make.
We survived, didn't we? We really survived just before that made it more annoying as well. The fact that Watkins has made an unbelievable clearance off the line, brilliant. And we've got no reward for that because we've ended up conceding from that same phase of play, that same attack. I know you're saying, and I completely get what you're saying. You understand why it's being given. When you just watch it, anyone who didn't like football does like football. If you just watch it, it isn't a penalty. There's nothing there for it to be a penalty, but because of the way the game is, and the game's stupid at times, it is given. That's terrible analysis for me, but that is where we're at.
But it's true. It's true, and I think conversely, when you look at Declan Rice, when Declan Rice was really clumsy in the box, and there was more contact, and then the referee. So I initially, my initial point was going to be to you there when you mentioned about VAR. If the referee had given it, VAR wouldn't have overturned it. And I think what happened was VAR just blanketly backed the referee in both of those decisions.
Of course, that is what happened. You're exactly right. That's exactly what happened. But we're skipping way ahead. But yes, I don't think ours was a penalty either. But I think if you're giving the first one, I think ours is a penalty. But because of the stupid way VAR works, because the ref hasn't given it, we don't get it. And I don't think for 1 second it's a penalty in a million years. But neither is theirs. And this is where I just say VAR can just be a catastrophe because it's utterly pointless. There's no point having it there for that. There's no point looking at it. What's the point?
I 100% agree, and that's why I was hot under the collar, was because the application. So it's supposed to be a tool that's applied in a standardized way so that human error is taken out of the situation. So if you make so what that kind of means to me is, and Jesus, Dan, we must have talked about VAR more than football, I'd say, on this podcast whenever we get in there, get into it. But so if you make the rules at the start of the game and you say, right, this is a penalty, and then when you look at it and they looked at the rice thing through a completely different lens.
Yeah.
Clumsy and all as it is, it's not meant the rice thing, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, and you know, it's as clear a penalty as the first one for me. So if you give one, you have to give the second one. I don't agree with. I think neither of the two of them are penalties in real time, for sure. But look, it's going to be one of life's foibles with the fact that we will never get our head around VAR, and it will never please everybody all the time. And at this stage, it was supposed to please everybody all the time. Now what it's doing is it's just creating more and more talking points. I would have actually been fine if the referee had waved both of those off and there was no VAR. I think I would have been fine, or if the referee had given both of them or whatever.
They're not even ones that are remotely controversial. I don't think
I
either
agree.
either of them are they?
Yeah,
Really?
I
You look at
agree.
the Newcastle game. I don't know whether you've seen it. The Pope one that didn't get given. Now that's more of a penalty than either of the penalty claims in the Villa game. That's not given either. But yet the West Ham penalty, which is way less of a penalty than the Newcastle one today, and exactly the same as the one that we didn't get given. Really, that's where it's just a farce. It's just ridiculous. I get that you can't have consistency from like almost game to game in terms of so that Newcastle game today. I can't judge what the officials do in that game compared to the Villa game today. In some ways, I can understand that you can't.
Yeah,
They're two completely different games. But in the case of ours today, it's the same game. It's the
yeah,
same people. If you've given that first one as a penalty in the game,
exactly.
the second one is a penalty in the game, just because it's happened already. So I just
Hmm.
that's where it's just annoying. And I actually wasn't annoyed before I came on this podcast, and now I feel slightly frustrated now. So that's not good. Look, I think today 1-1 was probably a fair result,
Yeah,
but I don't think the goal that Villa have conceded in the game was fair because we've had something that we should have had later on in the game. It's just, the whole thing's just a
exactly.
mess.
If one of Ben Rama's efforts had pinged into the top corner and we drew 1-1 and no penalty was given, I would sit here and go, hard fought game, absolutely fine. Like, and it was. I do think the fair result was 1-1.
Yeah,
I
I
do
think if you
think it was a
asked the
fair
West Ham
result.
fan today as well, do you think yours was a penalty and do you think the Villa one was a penalty? They're probably going to say, I don't think either of them were a penalty. It's nothing to do
Yeah,
with bias. I genuinely think a West Ham fan would say neither of those were penalties,
yeah.
but only one's been given. Obviously, if we're here today and we've drawn 1-1 because we've scored a penalty like that, I'm probably happy, aren't I? Because it's aided my team. But it's still in the back of my mind, I'd be thinking, that wasn't a
I'd be here.
penalty. And I'd be on here saying it wasn't a penalty and that if ours was a penalty, West Ham should have had a penalty too if the roles were reversed. That I
I
definitely
think
would do that.
I think I'd be. I'm the same. I would definitely be going. Oh, look, yes, it was. It was soft, but look, I've seen them given.
Yes.
I'm the type of person. I talk myself into kind of going. Look, it was what it was. But look, I've seen them given, so I'm not going to dwell too much in it. If it was, so look, it's 6-1, half a dozen of the other. I don't think either of the two of them were penalties. I don't think the referee was the reason that we didn't win this game today. I think there was other things to talk about as the reason that we didn't win this game today. But I also think that 1-1 is a fair result. So it's just a kind of a game that it's hard to put into words. The core incidents, I suppose, that happen in the game don't actually correlate to the overall feeling about the game itself, which is weird because usually they do.
Yeah, and I think, if you're gonna be realistic about it, yes, the penalties cost Villa because they've drawn the game 1-1 because of that.
Yeah.
But I actually think Villa had two reasonably big chances in the game where they could have done better and could have won the game. The Watkins one at 1-1.
Yeah.
He should open his body up a bit more, and he probably should stick that in the back there. But
Mm,
in real
it was
time,
tough.
it's probably a
Yeah.
lot, probably a
And
lot
Areola's
different.
big at that stage,
Yeah,
all
it's a good
right.
save. You
Like,
know what? It's
it's a
actually a
great
good
save,
save.
yeah.
Because it could go through him, could go under him, could hit
Mm.
him and go in. It's a good save. He's held on to it. Fair play to him. Well done to Areola. But you kind of think you've got to be taking those chances, and he has taken his chances in the main in recent months. But that did feel like a big chance at 1-1, a bit like the chance last week at 1-0
Yep.
to kill the game and go 2-0 up. That's two big chances he's missed on half time in two games running. But overall, Ollie Watkins is in sensational form, and we're here to see it, and we love it.
Am I right in saying Erling Haaland?
He missed one yesterday, big one.
Harry Kane, Ollie Watkins. They're the three top scorers. Or Rashford, Haaland,
This
Harry
year,
Kane, Ollie Watkins since Boxing Day, since returned after
I think
the
Rashford's
World
got
Cup.
18 or something ridiculous in all competitions,
Yeah,
which I find absolutely staggering.
12 in the Premier League. I think I looked it up previously, or somebody shared it. I think it's 12, 11, 10, and 8. So
Yeah.
Watkins is 8 since then. So like that's fantastic stuff out of Ollie Watkins. We need. Do you know what my only criticism of Ollie Watkins is? I think we just need to get him in the game more now because he's in a rich vein of form, and he's actually. Do you know what the funny thing is? His goals per shots ratio have rocketed since Danny Ings isn't in the team anymore. He's taking less shots since Ings isn't in the team, and he's having better outcomes. And that isn't the Watkins versus Ings thing today. I actually thought Ings was very quiet today.
Yeah.
He had he was quiet. He found it difficult to get into
No
the game
service.
himself.
No
No
service.
service,
He
exactly,
relies on servicings.
which is wild considering the players that they had playing behind him. But Ollie Watkins needed that one chance. I still think if you were to put a truth serum to him, he says he has no idea where that header is going, but all he wanted to do was head it down into the ground, and fair play to him. It went
Perfect
into the
header.
back of the net. It was brilliant. Yeah,
Across
yeah,
the
it was really
keeper as
good.
well. That's a difficult skill. Like you
Yeah.
say, maybe he didn't mean it, but he's arced it there. It's a lovely header and a real potent finish from Ollie Watkins. And like I say, in front of goal at the moment, he's absolutely brilliant. It's good to see him scoring headers as well, because I don't feel like he scored loads of headers for Villa, but that's a couple now since Unai Emery's come in anyway. He's obviously scored one against Southampton as well with his head. He's scoring a variety of goals, Ollie Watkins, and he's full of confidence. I think I like that about him now, that if he misses a chance, he doesn't dwell on it. It doesn't affect his game. I feel at times Ollie Watkins, he sometimes beats himself up a little bit too much if he misses a chance. I just said then, every striker will miss chances. Haaland scored the winner yesterday for Man City, but off on a penalty spot. But he put one over the bar that he should have absolutely buried earlier on in the game. Now, every striker misses chances, even the best ones. But the key thing is at the moment that Ollie Watkins is putting the ball in the net on a regular basis.
That's it. Yeah, and we need to keep him fit at all costs.
Yeah.
And there is like I said on my own post match podcast that I think and we'll probably get on to Leon Bailey in a moment. I think his overall contribution, because once again, I think he was lacking. I expected more from him again today. And what I'm beginning to struggle with Leon Bailey is that you can't move him into any other position to get him into the game, because what he's doing is he's drifting so far back from that second striker position anyway, that he's getting back into a wing position. So, you're kind of betwixt and between what you can do with him even at this moment in time. So, like, and to get Ollie Watkins into the game, we then struggle to get Ollie Watkins into the game much more from maybe broken play or something like that, to give him an opportunity to get touches on the ball, because I think he's a player who does need touches on the ball, as well as now what we're seeing is his gets one shot, he puts it in the back of the net, which I will be honest with you, for Ollie Watkins, it's an improvement on what he's been previously, because he's not always been that player. And we're not going to try and gaslight anybody into thinking that Ollie Watkins has always been a clinical striker. It's obviously something he's worked on. But because he isn't getting a lot of touches, and because Bailey is, he can be a real roadblock with regards to us attacking at times, because he just does, like, he can lose the ball in city situations, or he can try too hard, and an attack breaks down through him at times. It's just one of those things that I feel that if we had somebody like John Duran comes on and he's able to occupy his centre half, win a high ball, and Ollie Watkins can drop into that Bailey position, not all the time, but they can interchange. You can't interchange a Bailey and an Ollie Watkins the way they are at the moment, because could you imagine lumping the ball up between Kurt Zuma and Leon Bailey? It would just be like, it'd just come back twice as fast. So it's just, there's a dichotomy there with Leon Bailey where he's not offering us anything like we need him to offer us at the moment, or anything like he wants to be able to. He looks a disconsolate player at the moment. Things aren't working for him in this league at this moment in time. And it's not like it's rinse and repeat with him the whole time. The way he loses the ball is very similar, almost weekly at this moment in time. So for an Ollie Watkins point of view, I'd love to see what he could do with another striker that can play off him. Because when we play Buendia up there up top, you can see he's a bit more mobile, he's a bit more active. And I know he had something like 31 touches today, but I'd like to get him more meaningful touches closer to goal if we can get him to have more shots on goal because he is our only striker.
Yeah, on Bailey, like you say, you're watching the same thing every week at the moment. Unfortunately, I don't want to rip into him at all because he's scored some important goals this season.
Yeah,
I
of
don't think
course.
I don't think you can have a go at him for the penalty, and I also don't think it's down to lack of effort at all. I don't watch him and think he ain't trying. He's not there in
Mm.
terms of work. Right? I think he does work hard, but overall now there's only so many times you can just watch someone go down the same blind alley, run into the same cul-de-sac, keep just dribbling and running into players. It feels a bit predictable at the moment that where he's playing and that he ends up on that right hand side and he cuts in and the defender stops him.
Yeah.
He runs into him. It's too predictable at the moment. And I really, really want him to be a success, Leon Bailey. I really do, because I do think there's a good player in there. But at the moment, it's getting tough to watch him. I was watching the game today with my dad, and obviously I'm at every home game with my dad as well. My dad's very placid and quiet when it comes to Villa. But he's sick of Leon Bailey at the moment. He's absolutely sick of watching him, and I just think he came out the team, and you hope he's going to come back in this week and maybe he'll prove a point. I had a feeling he'd probably start today, and that it might end up being McGinn that came into the centre, and we'll come on to McGinn because I thought he was good again today. But at the moment, is Leon Bailey affecting the game enough in a positive way to put up with the bad side of his game? And at the moment, he just isn't, unfortunately. And it was interesting today that Troy Ore came on and got a run out. A player who I would say is maybe equally as frustrating at times as Leon Bailey, but he hasn't played for a long time. So there's some caveats there, isn't there, today? And he did do a couple of nice things. He did a couple of frustrating things as well, but it's going to take time to build him up. And I think you'll start to see him come on now a little bit more regular. But Bailey at the moment, he's got to do more if he wants to be in the team. And I'm saying that with Villa having one of the smallest squads there is in existence as well.
Bertrand Traore, just as you mentioned him there when he came on, looked like a guy who was shaking off some ring rust.
Hasn't
being
played
back
for a
into
long time.
competitive. He's been away for a long time, exactly, and he'd been in the Turkish league, and with all due respect to other leagues in Europe, the cut and trust of the Premier League, specifically when you're coming up against a team like West Ham are fighting and are that bit physical. You could see he was a bit rusty. He wasn't poor by any means.
No,
But he
I didn't think so at all.
didn't do anything outstanding. Didn't do it but he was less frustrating, I would say. And do you know what?
Maybe that was the game, though, Neil.
I think so.
Maybe that was the game.
Exactly.
No one did anything outstanding. It was a bit frustrating at times. No one was poor. No one was good, particular. It was just one of the, although I did think the centre backs and McGinn were good, but yeah, we'll come on to that. But you know what I mean? It was just that kind of game.
I forgot. I don't know what it is, but Bertrand Traore is, what is he, 5'11"? I don't even think he's 6 foot. He looked about 6'2" out there today. It looked like he, in Turkey, people go to Turkey usually to get their hair transplants or whatever like that. It looks like Bertrand Traore got like leg transplants to get longer legs, because he looked way taller when he was out there. Yeah, he did. He looked more like a gazelle when he was out there, because he does move quite well and quite fluidly. And I think, if you're just hoping that Leon Bailey's pace is going to get you out of trouble away from home, well, why not have Bertrand Traore's unpredictability? Because, as you said, pace can be unpredictable for Leon Bailey, but what he does with his pace is becoming very predictable. And for me, that's it's. I think we need to find a different formula there, or hope that Boubacar Kamara comes back sooner rather than later, and we just go back to our flat four midfield, or tight inverted four in midfield, or whatever you want to call it.
I think away that flat four with the four central midfielders actually works pretty well.
I think so too.
Away from home, I think it's actually perfect, especially when Moreno plays, because he's now starting to affect games when he plays. Again, I don't think he's perfect at the moment. I think he's given us more so far than from what I've seen from Luca Dean, and obviously he's got an assist today. I just think because of his pace, and he loves to get forward, he loves to be in the penalty area. He's kind of providing the width on that side. You'd hope Leon Bailey would provide the width on the other side, because he likes to play from the right. That's maybe where we've not got any width on that one side, but as long as you've got it on one side, I don't think that particularly matters. But he's become a good outlet, I'd say, in recent weeks, Moreno.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's interesting the way that Unai Emery kind of lets him just empty the tank and then brings on Luca Dean. I thought it was a strange substitution in real time. I was there. Oh,
every week we do that sub now. It's become the new El Ghazi for Trezeguet, the left back change.
But it's like the drop off in an attacking sense are the sorry, not the drop off, the change of the point of attack between the two of them. We've spoken about it before. Is it can be a good change up as well. I thought Dini did really well when he came on. I thought that was, he had a 20-minute burst in him, and I thought he utilized it. But I thought Moreno was really good. Still picks the wrong pass from time to time. Getting used to the league, that's okay. But he's a very willing defender. You can see that in him. You can see his positioning is that bit better, and his pace. He was able to there was times there when the three centre halves for West Ham were fanning out, and Rice was playing in front of them. That's when he was waiting for that to happen for the fullbacks, or the Bowen and what you call him on the other side, and Palmieri to come forward. When Palmieri came forward, he just shot past him. That's all he was doing, and it was nothing. It was just the awareness of the way that West Ham were playing, the way the field was panning out. And when that happened, he just went on his bike, and he was finding himself in 10, 15 yards of space out in that wing, which is absolutely brilliant. And there was times in that second half, early in the second half, where I was thinking he was doing that, and I was going, this is probably made for them to bring on Ashley Young instead of Leon Bailey, and just let him just find that 10-yard pocket of space. He doesn't need to be lightning quick, but Ashley Young can deliver a ball. And he did come on later on, obviously, but he came on for Matty Cash. But the way that Unai Emery is cycling through substitutions, they may seem strange, but I suppose when I sit down and I look at him afterwards, I can understand reasonings why he's making those substitutions. And he's using 4 or 5 subs most games now, which I think is beneficial because, as you say, we've got a thin squad. We might as well start using it and keeping people fresh, even protecting games like we did today. He brings on Callum Chambers and we come out of there with a 1-1 draw, because that last 10 minutes could have been toasty enough if we had let them keep coming on to us like we did.
Yeah, I think my one criticism of Villa today would maybe be that I think Carrera was there to be got at today, and I think we did it at times, but I don't think we did enough of it. I think he struggled since he came to the Premier League, and Moreno was getting a lot of joy down that side when we attacked. I just felt like there's more of an opportunity there to get at him through the game in the second half in particular. I don't think we really got at him at all. I think he was still on the pitch. My memory's a bit hazy, to be honest, but I don't recall us getting at him, and I think that was a real avenue for success today, and the goal came from that side. To finish, let's just talk. This is one. John McGinn was excellent today in the middle of the park. Well done to him. Moving inside, I thought he showed some really positive traits in the game again. But I just want to talk about the two centre backs. Previously, that's a game Villa would have really, really struggled in with just a bit of bombardment. But I think those two, Konsa and Mings, it felt a bit like a performance from that pairing of a few years ago, a couple of seasons ago. When we were going really well. The only way I can think to describe it is when Ross Barkley was playing as number 10. But the defence was going really well at that point, it felt. And I felt Konsa and Mings today, it was like that. I thought they both dealt with everything that came their way in what won't have been an easy game for them. So I think that's a positive for us today. As well as now, Diego Carlos was on the bench, which is another great positive, having him back in the squad.
Absolutely, I agree. I missed about 5 seconds of what you said there because I sneezed and my ears started ringing afterwards because I was trying to stifle it. But I think I got what you said there about our two centre halves, and I missed the part about Ross Barkley. I was wondering.
I was just saying in that time Ross Barkley was in the team. That was the only way I could think to describe the time.
Yes,
he was number 10 when we were beating Liverpool 7-2. Around that time, we were really good defensively, and the defence felt really on it. And I felt that from Konsa and Mings today, that they were really on it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they marshalled things really well. They marshalled anyway. Like Thomas Soucek, his name was very rarely mentioned in the Spanish commentary that I was listening to today. His name was very rarely mentioned. I thought it was one of his more anonymous games. I could be wrong on that, but I don't remember any massive moments that he had. And I thought that he would have joined that attacking line to affect both Konsa and Mings and try and rough them up, but he didn't. West Ham's biggest attacking outlet came from Benrahma on the left-hand side, and that seemed to be their game plan, was to isolate Benrahma out there and try and get him space with Matty Cash to cut inside and have shots. But the two centre halves I thought were really good. Do you know what I liked about Mings as well today? And some people will say that he needs to stop doing this and concentrate on defending. But he was striding out with the ball again. He was striding out with that ball. There was a couple of times where there was one time where he just put on the afterburners. He had the ball. I think it could have been Ings came to him. He shuffled the ball to the sides and put the afterburners on and ran straight through the middle of midfield. And he ended up, a good bit into their half at this stage, and then played a ball out to Moreno, I think, on the left-hand side. And that's confidence, and we need those two players to be confident, Mings and Kanza, because they play better when they're confident. So well done to the two of them today. I thought that they were very good, and they were solid, should I say. They were nicely structured. So I thought Martinez was brilliant today as well.
Yeah,
Made some really good saves.
Yeah, that one where he ran out, which scared me a little bit in the first half. It's very fast off his line. Nowadays, I'm not always convinced it's the right decision when he does it. Emi Martinez knows more about goalkeeping than I do. That's the fact. But it's very quick to come out. At times, I thought we played quite high today at times as well, which I like, trying to assert pressure, trying to assert a bit of dominance, but not all the way through the game. Just in certain periods when we felt we were in control, we maybe pushed up an extra 5 or 10 yards today and tried to exert that dominance a little bit more on West Ham and pin them in and make it difficult. And then if an attack broke down, we were high in there and we were ready to go again. I quite liked that at times. I don't think we did it all the way through the game. But there was definitely moments, in the second half, I remember saying it to my dad. There was times when we did do that. I think we're becoming a decent outfit now, and the players that are here are becoming a lot more adept with what Emery wants. If Emery had seen things he didn't like today and wasn't happy with the result, he'd have said something after the game. But I think he would have been reasonably pleased with what he saw today. Did Villa, were Villa brilliant? No. Did they execute the game plan? Probably they did execute seven or eight things that Unai Emery wanted from them today. They've ended up drawing the game because they've given away a penalty that wasn't a penalty, and there's absolutely no consistency. But I still think, fair result. West Ham 1, Villa 1. I don't think anyone walks away massively disappointed by that. Maybe some Villa fans do, but I think no one from West Ham, no one from Villa walks away from that and thinks, that's a really bad result. That is.
Yeah.
Especially when you've won the home game the week before as well. And then if we win at home next week, if you win the home game, take a point away or vice versa, you're happy, aren't you? You're in a good place. We're still stuck in 11th. We'll be in 11th for the rest of the time, it seems. But overall, a good point there and a decent result. Just a few frustrations, I guess.
I think one of the things that you mentioned there about Unai Emery being happy with this is that we went away from home with 60% of the possession. Players looked like, while we did give away the ball sloppily at times, I know that, and that's going to happen in the majority of games. Like, we're not Man City, we're not Barcelona of the late 2000s. We're going to give the ball away. But I thought the team looked more comfortable with the style, with the ideology of the way that they want to play now. And I thought that they looked to want to control possession of the game for good portions, and they did. And that's why we had 60% over the course of the game. And I think Unai Emery will look back at that and he'll go, if you go to any ground in the Premier League, or most grounds in the Premier League, and you control possession, you have a better chance of coming out of that ground without conceding a goal. And I think that's what he's all about. And it stands to reason today. Yes, we did concede our goal, a penalty, but we've talked about the potential for that penalty not to be given. So I think Unai Emery, if that is his mindset, I think he's probably right in thinking that way, that if you can own possession away from home, then you frustrate other fans, like you said at the very, very start, to tie a nice bow on this. And then what you can do is you can concentrate on hitting people on the break when they're least expected, and come away from away wins 1-0 or even 1-1 like we did, or come away from away games 1-0 or 1-1 today. And that's a sign of a good team when you can do that. Now, let's see if we can do it at home, because at home has been very, very, very flaky for us so far this season.
And also, the biggest compliment I can pay John McGinn in the team today is that I wasn't sat there thinking, we really miss Boubacar Kamara. I obviously we do miss him, but I didn't sit there thinking, this would be much better if he was in there. I think McGinn did his job in the middle of the park today. I think that the defence in the midfield broke up the game pretty well and repelled things that were thrown at them today as well. So we know Kamara is a massive miss in our midfield, but I didn't sit there today and watch that game and think, we're really, really missing him here. And I guess that's a positive, because I thought, especially in this game, he'd be a huge miss. And to get 60% possession without him in the central midfield as well, that's a big thing. And that shows that the rest of the midfield and the players, they're learning what Emery wants. They're getting better at what Emery wants as well, because I wouldn't have expected to get 60% possession today without him in that midfield. So fair play to everyone today. Decent result. Some annoyances, as I've said, but all in all, I think it was a fair point, and it's a good point for Villa as well. Neil, thank you ever so much for joining me. You go back and look after your sick family. You shouldn't be doing the podcast really, but I'm glad that you did. Thank you ever so much for coming on. Thanks to the people that have tuned in live as well. There's been some fashion critiques from Chris Dolan, which him dishing out the fashion critique with that YouTube photo is absolutely outrageous, in my opinion. Great, he's a lovely fashionista, but that photo that he's got on as his YouTube picture, he needs to review that heavily. It looks like he's having a photo shoot in his living room. But yeah, that'll do us. Thanks ever so much for tuning in. Thanks to Purity. Thanks to Adam for producing as well. As far as I know, the show's gone out and there's been no fault. So a 10 out of 10 display
Well,
from
it can't be any worse than my efforts today. If anybody's seen mine, you've heard more. Like, I see the different side to me and the anger that I showed as I came on the podcast because of Gremlins. So well done, Adam.
Yes, well done. Tough job in there. Tough job producing. Tough job having to deal with me. So yeah, fair play to Adam. Be back. 1874 is actually going to be on Tuesday, not Monday. So we'll let you know when that's coming. Greg's unavailable tomorrow, so we're going to push it to Tuesday, potentially doing it live. So do watch it live. We'll let you know when it is and ask some questions as well, because we enjoy hearing from everyone that's watching. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Not long left. Up the Villa.